Welcome to another episode of Relatively Famous, the podcast where I, Chip White, interview relatives of famous people. My famous relative is Vanna White of Wheel of Fortune. I hope you watched that show. We grew up in Myrtle Beach area of South Carolina, and it's an amazing place. There's 90 golf courses, 2,000 restaurants. It's a family-friendly beach. There's so much to do there for families, for golfers, for foodies, for people who love music. And if you want to plan the perfect family vacation, go to visitmyrtlebeach.com. That's visitmyrtlebeach.com. For the perfect vacation, visitmyrtlebeach.com. Now, today's guest, sometimes, the more I do this podcast, the more I realize a lot of my guests are in my own backyard, and I don't even realize it at the time. I found out that today's guest is the daughter of a very famous magician, Harry Blackstone, who I remember as a kid, or teenager and a kid. He was kind of like the first, other than Houdini, magician that I kind of knew of. And you got to see him on guest starring on TV shows as a villain almost sometimes. It was kind of cool. And going into my backyard, I found out that his daughter, Bellamie Blackstone, is the producer of Wheel of Fortune now. So we're excited to have Bellamie Blackstone on today.
Relatively Famous Podcast with Chip White.
Bellamie, welcome to the show today. I was super excited to have you on. I remember your dad, and now you're part of the family practically.
Well, thank you so much. I can't tell you how much I appreciate being on. I absolutely adore working with your sister. She is just the kindest, most phenomenal woman, and it's been an absolute joy. And also, it's wonderful to get a chance to talk about my dad, because he was just such a special man in my life, and I don't get that opportunity that often these days. So it's wonderful. Thanks.
Well, cool, because we're going to talk a lot about you, because I want people to know who you are. But let's kick in about your dad, because I know that he was on Hart to Hart. I think Love Boat, maybe. Do I remember that correctly?
It's possible. I don't remember that one, but it's possible for sure. Santa Barbara. There was a soap opera, Santa Barbara, that he played a magician on for a while. But my favorite, I think, because of my age, was he did a show called Square One, which was the slightly older version of Sesame Street. And he was the math magician. And that was one of my favorite things as a kid, was to help him sort out the pieces of math and magic that he would do for that show. It was a lot of fun.
Oh, that's cool. Now, talk about, because a lot of people may not know who he is. I always tell everybody, that's what Google's for. Look up Harry Blackstone. But
Sure.
Talk a little bit about, you're growing up as a magician's daughter.
Sure. So my dad was Harry Blackstone Jr., and my grandfather was Harry Blackstone Sr., and Senior was a magician around the time of Houdini. He was born in the late 1800s, and so right around the turn of the century into the 20s, 30s, 40s, he traveled the country, and there was always the fun stories of, Houdini would go to town and put up his poster, and my grandfather would come up and put his poster over his. And then my dad grew up traveling with his father's show, and after working in TV for a bit in the 60s and early 70s, he decided to get back into magic and to take over his father's show at one point. And so by the time I came along, my mom was also my dad's key assistant and producer of his show. And by the time I came along, they were opening on Broadway. And so the first few years of my life really was the bus and truck tour after, I think it was 8 or 10 months at Majestic Theater on Broadway. So my childhood really was seeing the world through the backstage of theaters and getting to be a part of just a really incredible experience of theater and camaraderie, and an absolutely beautiful show that was just about the beauty of theater and really suspending your disbelief and being a part of this wonderful world that they created.
I've always been fascinated by magicians. I've seen some amazing shows, and it just seems it gets crazier and crazier in the things that happen. Were you part of the show?
Oh, yeah.
You do magic?
I don't do magic now. I did all growing up. I was a part of the show. You didn't just travel with the show. You had to earn your keep. So we, any place we'd arrive to, my job was you open up the wardrobe trunks, and as a small kid, steaming out costumes and making everything ready to go. Magic is a very prop heavy world, so it was a lot of setting things up and getting ready for shows. And then also I was a dancer in the show. I was sawed in half. I was levitated. Basically if they did it, I was a part of it. And I loved it. It was just so much fun. And I loved theater. I ended up studying theater in college. So it's really it's so much bigger than just the concepts of magic. The most fascinating part about magic to me is that it's really 10, 15, maybe 20 basic concepts. And the rest of it are variations on a theme. And it's all about just creating this moment of suspending your disbelief and engaging in the moment with that person. And there's so many incredibly talented people out there. I realized that I was not one of them. So magic was not in my future.
What was one of your father's favorite, or one of your father's favorite, I'm going to say act, trick. I mean, I'm not sure the correct term that you use anymore. It used to be trick.
I think it's still trick. I mean,
Okay.
it depends on, there's a lot of really wonderful moments of his show. I think my favorite, just because it was an incredibly beautiful piece of theater, was the floating light bulb. It was created by my grandfather and his brother in the 1920s. So there was no technology. It was just a light bulb that he held on stage. And in my grandfather's version, it would float across the stage and back and forth. And people were just absolutely in awe. And then my dad created another piece to that where he was able to float it out over the audience. And there's something about just being in a moment, being in the theater with thousands of other people, and all of you experiencing that magical, disbelieving thing that is going on in front of you. And it was so beautiful because it was just dark in the theater, nothing but that one light. And it's really one of my favorites. What
was the favorite thing that you got to participate in as getting sawed in half or disappearing? What was the thing you liked the best?
Sure. I mean, I always loved a good, like a disappearing. I always wanted to get turned into the tiger. My mom got to be turned into a tiger, but it was too dangerous for a kid. But I just thought that looked so exciting and really fun. I got sawed in half on several occasions. I always liked that. I liked doing something called the zigzag lady that my mom also did, but sometimes I got to do it, where you get put into a box and there are swords that come in on either side, and your middle gets taken off to the side and your head and your feet the opposite direction. So you're in three parts. That one was always a lot of fun. It's funny describing it because it's one of those things I think other people hear you describe it and they think that's a very strange childhood. But to me, it just was absolutely normal and wonderful. And I learned very early, and whether this is good or bad, that magic wasn't real, but that theater was absolutely wonderful and such an amazing part of people's lives. And I think as a family, we just really believed that entertaining people was something that we had the gift and the ability to do, and we loved it. And my dad he always said he was an actor playing the part of a magician, because that was just the mechanism he used, because he loved to entertain.
Yeah, and he did do some acting, obviously. Like I said, you sent a picture of him with Robert Wagner, and I remember the Heart to Heart episode. And,
yeah, that's me as a baby.
Yep. So, moving into now your life, you've grown up as a magician's daughter, and you've traveled and you've been backstage. What kind of talk us through from after high school? What did Bellamie do?
Sure. Well, unfortunately, my dad passed away my senior year of high school, and I didn't know what I was going to do. So much of my life, I had gone back and forth between traveling and homeschooling, and then going into more traditional school. So by the time I was graduating from high school, I knew I wanted to go to college. I was lucky enough to be accepted at the USC School of Theater, which was actually my dad's college as well. So it was very exciting for me to get to be a part of that aspect of his world as well. And as I said, I absolutely loved theater, and I still do. I think it's just absolutely, so wonderful to be able to go into that to a space and just appreciate that moment in time with others. And so many people tried to talk me into going into magic after my dad passed, and I just realized that it was really not for me. It is a hard-fought profession, and you have to love it. You really need to want nothing more than to do that for your life. And as much as I love theater, I think magic is wonderful and the community of people are absolutely terrific. But for me, I knew there were other things I wanted to explore. So after college, I actually had interned at a company during college where I was working in theme park design and development. And I was offered a job working for Warner Brothers, doing a theme park in Madrid, Spain. So I moved to Spain for a couple of years out of school and then came back and somehow kind of fell into television. I'm not even exactly sure how that happened. And just, fell in love with it again. So I have been building a career in TV from that point, having worked on so many different kinds of shows, talk shows and comedy shows and of course game shows. And it's really been fantastic because I like the live studio space. It's the same idea of being in a theater, but in the TV environment. So, everything is basically live to tape. Yes, you can take a few things over, but for the most part, it's not like a single camera scripted show where you're trying to really hone in on individual moments with actors. This is more about having that communal experience.
Yeah, I kind of fell into my TV career too. It's like there was a lady who worked at King World, Veronica, who passed away. But after being there and I went out freelancing, she kept like bouncing my career up going, I'm going to hire you to do this. I can't do that. Yes, you can. I'm going to pay you this. Oh, okay. I can do that. And this podcast actually came about from a talk show that I shot in the 90s, a pilot called Vanna White's Brothers Talk Show. we were just blatant. You know what? Everybody was getting a talk show. Yeah. Let's just be blatant. Even Vanna White's Brothers got one, right? You can find it on YouTube, by the way. So I appreciate what you're saying. Of the shows that you've done, or the types of shows, I know you're on one of the biggest shows there is now. What's been your favorite? What's been our the most fun or the most challenging kind of? Because like you and I, it's every day. But for other people, they go, "Wait, what you did?"
Sure.
What?
I mean, I know it is funny. Sometimes I have to pinch myself for like, this is a crazy life where you take things very seriously, and then you have to be like, and we make a game show, so this is not life and death, but you take it very seriously because you care very deeply about it and you want it to be the absolute best it can be. I think for me, in my 20s, I spent a lot of time doing Deal or No Deal, which is a show on NBC with Howie Mandel, and it was the best. I learned so much on that show, and just learned about how you produce people and how you tell the stories, even in the construct of a game. I think for me, probably moving into comedy, which I did a show for a long time on Comedy Central called At Midnight, which is now on CBS as After Midnight, which worked more like a comedy panel show, but in the guise of a game show. And that was really fun because it was day and date. So you got there in the morning at 7 or 8 a.m. and you wrote the script, and at 3 o'clock you were shooting it, and at 7 o'clock you were going to the satellite to feed it to the East Coast for a 9 or 10 o'clock air. So I really loved the pace and the grind of kind of understanding how to do that. Really, it was just an incredible learning experience. We had 900 comedians on, I think, over the 600 episodes. And it was like, I just learned so much, and how to set up a joke, how to structure these things, how to really make something punchier and funnier. So it was really such a great learning experience for me. And then got to go on and do some really fun things with Sarah Silverman. And one of my favorites, they did not ask me if I'd ever done a live show before, and I certainly wasn't going to tell them that I hadn't. But I was offered, Will Ferrell did a version of covering the royal wedding of Harry and Meghan. And so we went to London and we did it live in 90 countries, where he and Molly Shannon and Kristen Wiig and Tim Meadows, sort of all that SNL group from my childhood, from the 90s, came together and did 2 hours of improv reacting to what was happening on the wedding. We were getting live footage because actually the military runs big events like royal weddings. So ITV is getting it from the wedding, and we're getting a live feed through the military. It was an absolutely insane experience. That was one of the best professional days of my life, just because it was odd and wonderful and such talented people to be around.
That sounds actually kind of fun. Stressful, but fun.
A little bit stressful, a little bit maybe, but it was great.
So obviously you've now transitioned into my family. So how did and at a new era in Wheel of Fortune.
Yeah.
So talk us through that and what it's like for you now and
Sure.
and
Yeah.
stepping into an iconic 40-year show.
I mean, talk about, just a beautiful history and talented people. It's just, it's a great place to be. And I feel very lucky to be here in this particular moment, right? I joined a little less than 3 years ago, and it was a moment where, Pat was very open with me that he was considering retirement and was trying to decide what was best for him and what was next for him. And when he made that decision, you know, it became so clear to me that it was a moment we had to really think about what the future of this show looks and feels like. It has this incredible legacy, but the ecosystem around it, the world of television, the world in general, is changing so very much and so quickly that we want to set ourselves up to still be here, decades from now. And it's such a beloved part of people's lives. I think, Vanna has been in people's living rooms for such a long time. It's so interesting, and I'm sure you've experienced this with her, that you go places and people really believe that they know her. And not in a creepy way, it's just that she's so familiar and wonderful and warm that they feel this connection. And the beautiful part about Ryan having joined the show is that people already feel that for him as well. And so the two of them together, I mean, their chemistry is just absolutely incredible. They immediately were fast friends. They've known each other a long time, but to see them work together, to feel the energy that they both bring, to watch Vanna sort of reinvent how she interacts with the show and modernizing her role in this has been a lot of fun for me, especially as a woman wanting to support other women. I think it's wonderful to see her grow and change, even after such a long time on the show. It's wonderful to me to see her just blossom and continue to grow, how she interacts with fans, how she interacts with the content of the show. And then to be in a moment where, it's so exciting because there's so much that we can do. Just we're I think 11 or 12 weeks into this first season with Ryan, and just already seeing how we are expanding into his greater ecosystem, with iHeartRadio, and you'll see some fun things coming up with New Year's Rockin' Eve and American Idol. So it's fun because there's all this new space to play in, and both Ryan and Vanna are so eager to do that. So, it's great. And from our contestant standpoint, there's a lot of runway for us to do really fun, interesting things, to prize these huge aspirational trips that you can't find other places. And for Ryan also to open the door to some VIP experiences, to join him backstage and meet artists that they otherwise and we as a show wouldn't otherwise have access to. So it's been an exciting last year. He really started with us last fall to start learning the game, to start shooting some promo and some things with us. So it's been an exciting past year where we've just been able to explore and play and take the show in some new directions.
Yeah, I think that they're a good team together. People are always complaining like, "Oh, I'll never watch without Pat." I'm like, you know what? Just give it a shot. Give everything a shot, because I think he's doing
so
great.
Funny is that so many people had that response until they started watching Ryan, and then you've seen it shift in social, where all of a sudden they're like, "Oh, wait a second. Okay. Also, you guys didn't mess with the game. Ryan didn't change everything." I think they had this perception that it was going to be a very different experience, but people love the show because they love the show. They love the gameplay. So we haven't messed with that. We don't want to mess with that. We want it to be the same show that everybody loves, but everything has to grow and change.
Yeah.
And the moment where we can do that.
Yeah, I mean, he's making it. He's not changing the show, but he's making it his show. And and like you're talking about with Vanna, I remember it used to be Vanna and she would come out, twirl, and go to the board. Then they came out as a couple, or together, and then they had talking. So to see her change over the years is crazy too. I don't know if you noticed, we got our little Wheel of Fortune box over here over our shoulder.
Oh, nice.
RSTL, Ryan Seacrest, new something.
Ryan Seacrest to launch New Era. That was our promo campaign for the beginning of the season. And, we had some really fun moments where we changed the giant Ferris wheel in Santa Monica to be a Wheel of Fortune wheel that people could play along with. And, we've just been able to really have some fun. When you have something like Wheel of Fortune that everybody knows, everyone watches this show, the numbers are staggering, and they're so exciting because we're absolutely a part of the cultural zeitgeist, right? So everything you do, people react to, and respond to, which is usually wonderful, sometimes, a little much, but it's really fantastic because you know that what you're doing affects people. And so it's fun to come up with new ways to get them excited and get them engaged. And, we've even started a segment this season with Ryan and Vanna responding to social media questions that people have made. So they'll talk about them in show and they'll say, at Chip White asked us this question and here's what we think about that, because it's important to us to engage in conversation and to let people know that we really are listening, that we're excited and grateful for them to be a part of the show and to still, consider it to be such an integral part of their day.
Yep. And so recently, and of course this, hopefully, 5 years down the road, people will still watch this and it'll be relevant. You guys went to our hometown and shot some stuff and down in Myrtle Beach. Was that your first time going to Myrtle Beach, and what was your experience like?
I absolutely loved it. It was just such a beautiful community of people. The Visit Myrtle Beach folks were absolutely lovely and welcoming us there. And, clearly Vanna is a hometown hero. We got to do a double-decker bus tour around town where she showed a group of wheel watchers some of her favorite places around town. And thank you. You gave us some fun suggestions to take on that bus tour as well. And I think, it was wonderful to see where she comes from. She is such a genuinely kind, lovely human. And when you realize how connected she still is to her hometown, how connected she still is with her, family members and community there, it's really lovely. And I think Ryan getting a chance to see that too was wonderful. And he loved it. And, it's a beautiful family friendly place. Oh, I'm also very obsessed with the SOS. I had never heard or seen of this before. And it was like spring break for older people. And we walked into a bar at 11 o'clock on a Friday morning. And it was just, I've never seen people having such a good time. And they were dancing and then playing music. And I just thought, someday I hope this is me. Because that looked like so much fun.
Yes, I tell people, my hometown, North Myrtle Beach, Main Street, Ocean Drive. I've been lucky to travel a lot of places around the world. And I used to love to dance, and I still do some. North Myrtle Beach is the only place you're ever going to go that you will see 40 to 90-year-olds dancing all day, all night. They'll dance till 3 a.m. They'll get up in 11 and be on the beach dancing the next morning. It's not like a young people's nightclub. There are young people nightclubs. Don't get me wrong. There's young people dancing, but it's like, you've never seen so many old people having fun in all your life as you do.
It is just joyful. It is a joyful
It's
place.
amazing.
And everywhere you go, people seem to really just engage and have no sense of anything other than just that they are having a good time and being a part of that community. It kind of reminded me, I was lucky enough to travel to Argentina about a decade ago, and people there dance in the parks. There's tango everywhere. And you see the older people doing it, the younger people doing it. It was a very similar kind of vibe from that perspective. It was great.
And our mom is actually in the Shaggard's Hall of Fame, posthumous, but she was a huge Shagger.
I saw her plaque on the ground there outside the pavilion. I feel like I got a crash course in Myrtle Beach and North Myrtle Beach, and very clear on the difference now.
So a little bit more about you. What do you think your future is going to be? Everybody hopes Wheel's going to run forever, but
sure.
What do you think?
It'll be around for a good long time. I don't know. I love this show. I love getting to produce in this moment in time. I wish I knew the answer to that. I don't. It's a crazy industry right now, and everything is just changing so quickly. And, I think there's very few shows that have the kind of longevity and also appeal that Wheel of Fortune does. So I do believe it will be around for a very good long time, as will Jeopardy. These two shows are, just absolute juggernauts in our world. But I don't know. We'll see. We're looking at some other versions of the show possibly as time goes on. But, we want to give this a second and let the next iteration find itself in this process. So we're working on a lot of things, but for me, I am so grateful to still be producing TV and getting to be a part of this world, and so who knows.
Yeah. Good spinoff version. Nico Santapietro is the host. Maggie does the letters. There you go. Just switch the kids,
There you go. Just cycle it through.
Yep.
Well, we got to start having some grandbabies because we got to think about the next level.
Exactly. So we're getting close to running out of time. Is there a question I didn't ask you or something that you wanted to share, but in the middle of conversation that slipped your mind?
I mean, I don't know. We can talk about this stuff all day. I think circling back to my dad and my family life. I don't know that I meant to say this, but it's something that I always think about, which is I was very lucky to grow up in a family of people who absolutely loved what they did. Both my mom and my dad, they worked together. They were partners both in business and in life. And it was a really phenomenal way to spend my childhood, as maybe atypical as it seems to other people. We traveled with an elephant and a tiger and a camel. And as a kid, I didn't necessarily understand that not everybody had those things at their fingertips. And the dancers in the show all felt like family because we just would get on the bus one night and go to the next location and get off and just travel together and see the U.S. and the world together. But it was really very special. And I think about that a lot in building my own life in my world. I have a 3-year-old daughter, and I absolutely love that she can come to Wheel of Fortune now. And she, was in our Halloween episode at the end. We have all the staff kids come out and do that. And so, as wonderful as it's been to have Maggie on the show, Maggie Sajak, Pat's daughter, as you said, love to have Nico come at some point. But it is really special to be able to share that with your family. And I love that she's getting a chance to grow up in this world too. And then I love she's so comfortable here. She comes and she's like, all right, hi guys, I'm going to go and, go over here on the stage. And we had a Christmas episode recently, and there was a princess castle that was on the stage, and everybody went to lunch, and she spent 45 minutes playing with the princess castle. It did not occur to her that she was on the Wheel of Fortune stage. She was just a kid playing with the castle. And I thought that's exactly how this should be.
That's awesome. Now, real quickly, did you know your grandfather? And if I'm not sure, but if not, did you hear good stories from your dad about? Houdini was there.
Sure. Lots and lots of stories, both from my dad. No, my grandfather passed away in the early 60s, so that was long before I came into the picture. But I'm lucky because there's so much information out there, right? So there's historians, there's books, there's people who talk a lot about and who knew the both of them, who would tell me a lot of stories. And my dad did as well. He had wonderful stories of growing up. His mother was also so my grandmother was also in my grandfather's show, so that runs in the family as well. But it's such an interesting history and in what magic meant at that time in U.S. history. And how it was a reflection of just the change in culture. And there was a time when, my grandfather immigrated from France, and then he took on a German persona at one time. And then, as World War I started to take shape and take hold, he changed from that German persona. He actually saw a Blackstone cigar sign on the side of a building and thought, oh, that sounds like a good name. And so he changed his name to Blackstone. So, it's the folklore around vaudeville and the sort of larger than life characters that were created in that time they make such wonderful stories, and the incredible people that I've met in this community of magicians and circus people. And, I joke that I was raised by carnies, but, it was a lot of people who grew up in that space and have lived their lives, in atypical ways, and yet have such passion for what they do, have such enthusiasm for the art of magic. And, that's why places like the Magic Castle are so wonderful, because not only is it the Magic Castle, which is, a great private club, but it's also the Academy of Magical Arts, which is a group and a community of people very dedicated to ensuring that the art of magic is maintained and continued for generations to come. So there's so much in that space that I find to be really beautiful and lovely. And I don't know if I answered your question because I don't remember what it was now, but
you did. That was you certainly did. And I love the Magic Castle, man. It's so cool to go there.
My mom was just the president of the board of trustees there, so it's been an absolutely wonderful place, and as I said, just an insane community of people who are just the most wonderful.
Cool. I expect to get in free pass when I come out to LA next time.
Anytime. You let me know. I'd gladly take you to dinner.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. This has been great. It's been great getting to know you. I look forward to seeing you out in LA on the show or
when are you coming out to see a show? You got to come to the new era of Wheel of Fortune, Chip.
I do. We're definitely planning on coming out probably a little after the first of the year, maybe in February.
Perfect.
Give you guys time to work out the kinks before I come in.
Yeah, I don't want to embarrass ourselves in front of you, so it'd be good.
Well, thank you for your time today, and again, it was great stories.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me on.
Well, that was for me a great thrill to have Bellamie Blackstone. I love magic. Is obviously the connection with Wheel of Fortune. I'm super humbled and grateful for you, the audience, whether you're watching or listening, that you take the time to join us. I couldn't have a podcast without you. I want to thank our sponsor, visitmyrtlebeach.com. And you heard us talk about how wonderful Myrtle Beach is. So I suggest you jump online and plan your family vacation at visitmyrtlebeach.com. I want to thank Nelco Media for producing this, because otherwise I'd be sitting here going, man, I wish I had a podcast. And Nelco Comics, where we shoot our podcast. I want to thank them for the great location. And again, thank you, the audience. Hey, and if you happen to be related to someone famous or know someone related to someone famous, give us a shout. Reach out to us through social media. You can also reach me at podcastrelativelyfamous@gmail.com and see if we can get you on the show. Again, thank you, Bellamie, for being a part of today's show, and thank you, the audience.
You've been listening to Relatively Famous with Chip White. Please like and subscribe to Relatively Famous with Chip White.